Let's walk you through how DoReveal works. Here I'm logged into my DoReveal account and I have my studies listed: COVID-19, Deep Synth, Anthropic interviews, and more. To create a study, I simply click Add New Study here, give it a name, and then I can enter some additional information. All of this information is optional. DeepSynth is a specific feature within DoReveal that you can choose to enable. If DeepSynth is enabled, it will automatically analyze all of the interviews that you upload and generate a top-line report for you. Everything else in between would be automated, and then you will still have an option to be able to make changes and add your own analysis to it. The next field is around study objectives. This is where you can enter any kind of background information that should be used as context for the analysis. So especially the things that you as a researcher are interested in learning about. These could be proposal documents, research guides, any kind of analysis plan, and so on. You can also upload them as documents and we will extract information and populate this field. If you're using any kind of stimuli, such as concept testing, you can include the names of those stimuli as referred in the conversations right here. And that way, when DoReveal looks at the data, it will understand that this is a stimuli that was being displayed to the participant. Here you can enter any kind of analysis questions, the things that you want to analyze, whether you want to find the themes or pain points, etc. And this you will be able to change later on as well. And we'll show you as we go further into the demo. DoReveal has really good transcription capability built in. If you're using any industry-specific terms such as drug names in case of medical field, you can just enter them here, and that just signals to the transcription service to be mindful of the spellings when transcribing those words. If there is any sensitive information in your recordings that you prefer not to analyze, somebody mistakenly mentioned that social security number or personal details like their home address, you can say, find that information and redact it. Cool. There are a few other capabilities, but we'll skip them for now. Once the study is created, then we can add our interviews. To add interviews, we simply click Add Interview here. And we can upload our recordings and transcripts all in one go. Just drop the files over here and DoReveal will take care of the rest. Sometimes you're working with more specific requirements, like you might have a complex focus group, it might be a recording done in person, or there might be some very specific languages which tend to be more difficult to transcribe. For those, we have provided more control over here. Here also you can drop recordings and the transcript that you want. Then in addition to it, you can also select a specific language. You can specify the number of speakers that are there in the focus group. Next, you can also copy interviews from other studies that you've already created. So this is specifically useful when you're doing longitudinal analysis or when you want to be able to compare different studies against each other. You would simply come in here, select the interviews that you want to add to this specific study, and they will just get copied over. If you're recording using Zoom, you can simply plug in the URL over here, and if it's password protected, add the password, and we'll be able to pull the recording directly from here. You do not need to download and upload it into DoReveal. In addition to it, we also support these three community research platforms: Recollective, Qualzy, and Inkling. There are instructions available on how to export data from each of these platforms, and then you can just simply upload them into DoReveal. Once the interviews are uploaded, we will automatically transcribe them, identify the speakers, and then also identify who the participant is or participants are if it's a focus group. It generally does a very good job of this, but just in case it is not able to identify the participant correctly, you can still go ahead and update that and manually change it. Let's move into the analysis. There are two different ways to analyze data within DoReveal. One of them is the analysis grid, and then the second is the chat, which is more free-form ChatGPT-like experience. Let's look at both of them. I'll open this study, COVID-19. The study was done with frontline workers like doctors, EMTs, and nurses. By default, I come into the analysis grid. Here, all my participants are listed as columns. This grid can handle up to 100 different participants. And then all of the rows are the areas that I want to analyze. So these are those analysis questions we were looking at when we were setting up the study. To quickly orient you to the layout, on top, you have access to different analysis tools, including chat. The main area is for the data. And then there is a toolbar available depending on which screen you are. It'll show you the actions relevant to that screen. Over here, I'm looking at each of the areas that I wanted to analyze. and then I see an AI summary against each of the participants. I can expand this and get a lot more detail. Now everything in DoReveal ties back to the transcript, and that's a very critical part of all our process. Here I can see the link for view source transcript. As I click that, the panel on the right side opens, and now I can see that specific part of the transcript which is behind these observations. It has also highlighted some quotes that I think might be useful for me. If I like these quotes, I can simply click, and it gives me an option to add it to something called collection. A collection is really just a bucket where you can store verbatim quotes as you are doing your analysis. So here I'll click interesting quotes, and now that particular highlighted quote has been saved. I don't have to be limited to just the highlighted parts. I could choose any part of the text here, and I get the same options, and I can then simply add it. Those saved quotes are now available in this snippets menu. As I go to snippets, I can see all my collections. I can also add new collection here. And if I was to click interesting quotes, now I can see the quotes that we have just added. On this particular study, we had added transcripts. If I had uploaded an audio or a video file, I will also see an option to create clips. Let's quickly show that to you. I'll go back into a different study. In this study, I have 3 interviews. And this particular interview is in French. I can access the video file from here. A quick note on the language. This interview was done in French, but my analysis language is English, so I have an option to see an English translation right here as well. And from here, I can do exactly the same thing. I can simply select the text, add it into interesting quotes, and as I get into snippets, interesting quotes, I can see all of the saved ones, and this is where you'll see I have a clip icon available, which will download a video clip associated with this selected text. Let's go back into our COVID-19 study. Over here, as I'm looking at the analysis, I can also add additional questions. I click Add Question in my toolbar, and I get the same box that I had when I was setting up the study, and I can ask any analysis question here. In addition to being able to type out anything, I can also see the questions that DoReveal has identified looking across my interviews. So it looked at what conversations were actually happening, and based on that, what might be worth analyzing. If you like any of these, simply click, it gets added into the box. You can make a change if you want to, and then simply add it to the grid. It gets added to the top of the grid, and now DoReveal is automatically started to analyze each participant's responses related to my question. And we can see the responses coming in. So this gives you a feel for the speed as well. Cool. So within a few seconds, I have all the responses in. Now, so far, we've been looking at an each individual level, but we can also look across and say, look across all of my participants, be it 20 or 100, and tell me what's going on. For that, there is a comparisons button in my toolbar. You only have to click it once, and then the similarities and differences column show up. So any new question that I add will automatically include this analysis also. Here I can see what was similar across my participant and what were different. I get a quick chart here which shows me a quantified number. So like over here, I can see that there were some early recognizers of COVID-19, 4 to 10 people. And then there were people who recognized it late after March in this case. And like before, I can expand, get to the details. I also have references to individual speakers who talked about it, and I can click their name to get to the specific part of the transcript where this observation came from. So that way we can analyze each individual as well as compare their responses. You'll notice that for each of my participants, I also have tagged them as EMT, Pennsylvania, female, so I can add any kind of tags against each person. There are a couple of different ways to do it. I can simply click this edit icon and then add my tag over here. In addition to adding them individually like so, I can also import a CSV file. For that, I go to the 3-dot menu and click Manage Tags. Now I can simply import the tags from a spreadsheet. Let's go back to our observation grid. Once I have the tags in place, I can go to cohort comparison, say new comparison, And now all those tags are available to me. I simply select the ones that I want to compare. Let's say I want to compare men versus women. I could add more comparison points also. I could combine the tags. So I could say, look at doctors who are men. And then I can say, choose the ones where both of these tags were selected, and so on. So it gives me a lot of control. So with this, I just select the tags I want, give it a name. Let's say men versus women, and create my report. The analysis questions that I had in the observation grid before have automatically been pulled in. And we do that because that represents your interest as a researcher. Those are the points that you are curious to learn about. And then for each of these, it is now summarizing what women said, what men said. And then at a cohort level, at a segment level, it's going to compare and see what were the similarities and differences. All this will just automatically happen. There are a number of other analysis tools available like Codebook, Hypothesis Testing, Codes Finder. But before I show all of those to you, let me first show chat. So far we have looked at Analysis Grid, which is a more structured way to analyze data. But sometimes you need something more exploratory, or you might even prefer in general to work with chat. So as you go to chat, it's basically like ChatGPT, but very specifically focused on your study data. As I come here, I can see some suggested prompts based on my study. So I could ask a question about role-based risk perception or trust and leadership, because these were the topics that were discussed in the study. As I go further down, we have also included some example frameworks that you can include. For example, you could ask it to create journey maps or different kinds of personas, emotional laddering. You're not limited to these frameworks. These are just examples that we have given to show you what's possible. You could include any established analysis framework, like jobs to be done or behavioral science oriented and so on. If you like any of these, simply click, and then the prompt is already populated for you. You can still make changes to it, and then simply run the chat. You'll also see there is a place for saved prompts. These are the prompts that I have saved for myself. These did not come with DoReveal, but these are the prompts that I have discovered are useful for me, or when I'm doing longitudinal analysis, where I'm doing same analysis over and over for different studies, I could just save some of the prompts for those and make it easier for me to analyze it the next time. We'll get into how the save prompts works a little later in this video. For now, let's look at a few examples of the chat, of what it can do. On the left side, I have a few different chats that I have already done. Let's start with the frontline workers themes. Here I asked it to create a bar chart and table of top 10 themes for the frontline workers. It has identified all of those themes, it has generated a chart for me, and it has also included some verbatim quotes. For verbatim quotes, I can simply click on the person's name, and like before, I have access to my transcript here as well. Let's look at the next one, which is around sentiment analysis. So here I asked it to create a sentiment analysis and create a radar chart based on that, which it has done here. So it has identified different emotions and then identified the intensity with which each participant talked about those emotions. These charts can be downloaded as an image file right here. In this case, once I had the emotional analysis done, I actually went further and asked it to create 3 personas based on these emotional responses. And it has generated those here. Morally injured and burnt out workers. These are the people who match that persona. Now, in this case, I simply asked them to create a persona, so it has created it in the structure, but I could give it more specific instruction to say, include needs and pain points and attitudes or whatever I want in my personas, and it will be able to do that. So it's very flexible in that regard. Similarly, I had asked it to create a behavioral persona. So it allows you to then very quickly be able to look at things from multiple perspectives. You could create different kinds of personas and then decide collectively what kind of personas make sense for your study. In this example, I had asked it to identify the supply chain challenges. And then I asked it to summarize it from a perspective of a PPE vendor, a vendor that is building masks and those kind of equipment. It identified the key findings based on the data and what would be relevant to the PPE vendor, some consequences of that, and then some implications for the vendor. Guaranteed surge capacity with clear SLAs, rapid diversified sourcing with domestic options, transparent allocation, and so on. So it is able to take that persona of the stakeholder and then summarize information in that context for you. So likewise, you can do a very wide range of things here You could create journey maps, you could create empathy maps, jobs to be done, and many more things like that. Now, as you're doing this analysis, the insights get sprinkled across all of these chats. To make it easier for you to be able to collate these insights, as well as add your own notes as you're doing this analysis, there's a feature called Canvas. This is available inside the chat feature. As I click that, a panel opens up on the right side. Let's go ahead and create our first canvas. I can give it a name. And now it's basically a mini Word or Notion-like experience available right within my chat. Here I can copy paste from my document templates or an actual report. I can type in anything that I want here as well. And then I have some controls over formatting as well. Let's say I make it a heading. Now this is not meant to replace Word document. It is really meant to augment that whole process to make it easier for you to take the insights that you gain from the chat into your final report. You'll notice that as this panel opens up, there are also add buttons showing up in my chat. And this basically means that I can simply click and add that information into my canvas. Now in this particular component that I just added, there were some quotes included as well. And normally I would be able to click on Charles's name and see the transcript. The same thing is possible inside Canvas. I simply take a mouse over and now I have access to that part of the transcript where this observation came from. If I want to make changes, I simply can select any part of this here, and then maybe I just want to add it in my canvas. And let's make it look like a quote. So it gives you full control in that regard. It's not just a text, you can also add charts, tables, anything can be added. Anything that you're seeing in the chat can easily be added into the canvas. And once you've added your information, you can also download it as a Word document. You can create multiple canvases if you want it. So let's say one is about key themes, another one is about personas, and so on. So you can have multiple such canvases. The one thing to note with Canvas is that it is only accessible to the author of that canvas. So only the individual who created it can access it currently. And this has been done so that people don't accidentally overwrite each other's work. In future, we will be introducing more collaborative capabilities on top of Canvas as well. So we've looked at analysis grids and chat. Let's go back and look at some other tools. So I go into my analysis menu here. And the first tool I have is observation map. Before I show that to you, essentially the idea behind observation map and thematic codebook is to give you a bird's eye view. Everything that we have seen so far has a lot of text, a lot of information in it. But sometimes you just need to zoom out and look at it a higher level picture. So as I click on observation map, all the analysis questions that I had in my grid are again automatically pulled. I can simply click this, and now for that specific question, it's analyzing all of the participants' responses to create this kind of a tree structure of what are the broad themes and sub-themes that were observed related to that question. So here the question is around the first time recognition of COVID-19. And then we can see that in late 2019, there was awareness, and the source for that came from China as early background noise. Then in early 2020s, the awareness increased. January, the signals, there were some early signals that came. There was awareness while traveling internationally and so on. So you're getting this broad themes and sub-themes structure. And once the observation map is fully generated, you will also be able to see the actual people, speakers who said that information. So these placeholders P1 and P2 will get replaced by actual participant names, and you're able to click that and get to the transcript. So that's one way where this kind of a thematic structure is being created on a question by question basis. But if you wanted to look at holistically and say, look at everything that was being discussed in the interviews and then create this kind of a theme and sub-themes map, for that you can use thematic codebook. As I click that, it visually looks a little different, but it's the same idea. What I'm seeing are the broad themes and sub-themes and in a holistic manner. So overall, there was conversation around awareness and perceived risk of COVID-19, which is then subdivided into some initial minimization and distancing from the pandemic. There's some triggers and moments and realization. And I can click and go down to the individual level and see the broad themes of what the people said. So John talked about recalling initial awareness. John also talked about some moments of realization. Leela talked about experiencing realization. And I have verbatim quotes as well, which I can click and access the transcript like everywhere else. Next, let's look at hypothesis testing. So you might have hypotheses at the beginning of your project itself, or you might start to shape hypotheses as you're doing your analysis. For both of those cases, you can simply come here and you'll see the structure is very similar to the analysis grid. All my participants are listed as columns, and then the rows this time are the hypothesis statements and the analysis of those. So here I've entered the hypothesis about PP supply was available in abundance, and then I can see that it has come back with a summary, and it has come back with its own assessment to say whether there is evidence supporting that hypothesis, contradicting that hypothesis, or in some cases where it is inconclusive. To add a hypothesis, I go to my toolbar and simply add a hypothesis statement here. Works exactly like how analysis grids work. Next, let's look at quotes finder. So as I'm working through my analysis, I'm already able to access different quotes through the transcript, save them into my collections. But sometimes I need to look at the quotes after the fact. What did people say about X? For that, there is quotes finder. Again, the layout is the same familiar layout. You have participants listed as columns. And this time around, when I go to the toolbar, I can add a topic for my quotes. I still have access to the suggested questions like I had with the analysis grid. I can simply click and I can add it to the grid. And this time around, instead of coming up with the analysis, it's going to find the verbatim quotes that are related to what I want to know more about. And as before, I can still click on related transcript. I can see this quote in the context of the overall conversation. Now, this study was done in English. Let's quickly go back to our other study, which was done in French. Over here, if I go to the quotes finder, you will see that it is bringing up the quotes in the original language as well as automatically transcribing them to the language that I'm analyzing in. So you get access to both through this process. Let's go back to our COVID-19 study. So we've looked at observation grid, observation map, thematic codebook, hypothesis testing, and quotes finder. All of these use the natural language capability and the full AI capability. But sometimes you just need keyword search. You want to be able to say that specific keyword, where did people talk about that? For that, there is simple search available. I click search transcripts, and now I can just search. Let's say I want to talk about mask wearing, because this study was about COVID-19. As I click that, I get all the results for who said what related to it. I can group it by speakers, and I can see Charles talked about it in 5 different places. I click that, access my transcript, look at it in the context. There's one more thing I want to show you, which is the report. As I click the report, what DoReveal does is it automatically pulls my study background and goals and all of the analysis questions that I had in the grid. Those are automatically pulled here. And as I click that, the report then scrolls down and I can access them into my full report here. On top of it, then I can say generate an executive summary for me. And in this case, I've already generated one, but let's go ahead and regenerate. I click regenerate here, and then I can select the type of summary that I want to generate. I might be interested in insights and implications of those insights. I might want to take a broad thematic view across everything. Or it might be the kind of things where people have faced some challenges and we're discussing solutions, which actually is appropriate for COVID-19 study. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, DoReveal is automatically pulling all of that information together and generating an executive summary for you. So this is not a general summary. This is an executive summary that is based on the analysis questions that you are interested in. So it's a lot more targeted. There we go. So our executive summary is created. I can also download it as a Word document right here. But I want to show you 2 additional features. One of them are the saved prompts. So we talked about that before when we looked at the chat interface, where I can have saved prompts available to me. There are a couple of different ways for you to create saved prompts. First is when you have actually run a chat. So let's say I go into my chat here, and if there is any prompt over here that I like, I can simply save that. So next to this prompt, I have an option to copy it, edit it, and then also save it. I simply click Save Prompt. A panel opens up on the right side. I can give this prompt a name. Let's say this is the goal-oriented persona. I can make changes to my prompt also before saving it if I wanted to. And then I can decide to either keep it private or share it with any of the teams that I am a part of. And I simply save it. Now if I go into my new chat and look at the saved prompts, I can see my goal-oriented persona prompt being available here. I can also create prompts at a team level. So if you have a team and you want to have a shared set of prompts, and we saw that option where we were saving the prompt from the chat, then I can also go directly into the team, and you'll see against every team that I have in this application, I have an option to create custom prompts. I come here, it shows me all of the prompts that are already shared with this team. I can switch to see all the prompts that I have access to, see it by team, or see the ones that are only mine that I have created. And similarly, I can go ahead and create a new prompt here by clicking new prompt. Same process, I can give it a title, I can enter my prompt here, decide to share it with the team if I wanted to. So that's one feature. The second feature I want to show you is around writing style. So the output that AI provides tends to follow whatever the large language model in the background, like OpenAI or Anthropic Claude, has learned. So the writing style or the output style for all of the AI output tends to become very similar. For you to be able to introduce your own voice and tone, you can use writing style. I click writing style here, and now I have a place where I can specify the writing style that I prefer. In this case, I've taken a very simple one, like write short sentences as bullet points, use metaphors, include verbatim quotes, but I could make it as explicit as I want it to be. In addition to it, I can also upload 3 of my old documents. So let's say I have some reports that I have written before that are representative of my own writing style. I can simply upload those documents and then say upload an extract, and then AI will read those documents and update this box with the understanding of how those documents were written. Once the writing style is saved, if we go back into our study, let's say I go into the chat, you will see there is an option here. When I write a prompt, I can say, use the writing style for my output. For any reason, if I don't want to use it, I can switch it off. The same thing is available in reports also. When I go to report and I say executive summary, now I can select to use the writing style that I have saved. So those are all the core capabilities of DoReveal. There are a few other small conveniences that you will find as you start using the product. We hope you like it.